In 1970, something extraordinary happened on the football fields of Mexico. Brazil, led by the magic of Pelé, won the World Cup for the third time. And under the rules of the day, that achievement came with a reward no nation had ever received before. FIFA had decided that whichever country won the tournament 3 times would get to keep the trophy forever. Not a replica, not a copy, the real thing. The golden Jules Rimet Trophy, named after the Frenchman who had dreamed up the World Cup decades earlier, would belong to Brazil permanently. For Brazilians, this wasn't just a trophy. It was a symbol of identity, of pride, of a golden era that felt like it would never end. The trophy was brought home and placed on display at the headquarters of the Brazilian Football Confederation in Rio de Janeiro. It sat behind a glass case, reinforced, supposedly secure, a shining reminder of greatness for anyone who walked through the doors. For 13 years, it stayed there. Visitors came to see it. Children pressed their faces against the glass. It became part of the furniture of Brazilian football life, almost too familiar to feel precious anymore. And maybe that's exactly what made it vulnerable. On the night of the 19th of December 1983, everything changed. Under the cover of darkness, thieves broke into the headquarters. They didn't need to be football experts to know what they were looking at. Gold is gold, no matter what shape it's in. The trophy stood about 30 centimeters tall, made of solid gold, depicting the Greek goddess Nike holding an octagonal cup above her head. To a thief, it wasn't a piece of sporting history. It was a payday. The break-in was almost laughably simple. Reports later suggested the security at the building was minimal, the kind of oversight that seems unthinkable in hindsight. The thieves pried open the back of the display cabinet, lifted the trophy out, and vanished into the night. By morning, the case for Brazil's most treasured symbol stood empty. The news spread like wildfire. Shock, disbelief, anger. How could this happen? How could the symbol of 3 World Cup victories, the only one of its kind in the entire world, simply disappear from a building in Rio de Janeiro? Police launched an investigation almost immediately, and it didn't take long before arrests were made. Several men were detained in connection with the theft. One of them, a man named Sergio Pereira Aya, was identified as a key suspect. But here's where the story takes its darkest turn. Despite the arrests, despite the questioning, despite the pressure, the trophy itself was never recovered. Not a piece of it, not a fragment. Investigators developed a theory, one that still haunts football historians to this day. They believed the thieves, fully aware that the trophy was instantly recognizable and impossible to sell on any open market, made a brutal decision. They melted it down, reduced one of the most iconic objects in the history of sport into raw gold, stripped of all meaning, sold for scrap value on the black market. A piece of history that had traveled across continents, that had been lifted by some of the greatest footballers who ever lived, was potentially turned into nothing more than bars or ingots, indistinguishable from any other gold on the market. Think about that for a moment. The very same trophy that England's World Cup winning captain Bobby Moore had lifted in 1966, the trophy that had survived an entirely separate theft attempt back then too, when it was stolen in London just months before that tournament, only to be famously discovered a week later by a dog named Pickles, sniffing it out from under a hedge, wrapped in old newspaper. That trophy had cheated fate once already. In 1983, it wasn't so lucky. For Brazil, the loss was more than financial. It was emotional. A piece of their footballing soul, gone, possibly melted into anonymity. FIFA had to respond, and quickly. They commissioned an entirely new trophy for future tournaments, the one we recognize today, the gold trophy held aloft by champions since 1974, featuring 2 figures holding up the earth. But crucially, FIFA changed the rules. No country would ever be allowed to keep this new trophy permanently again. Winners would receive a gold-plated replica to keep, while the real trophy would always be returned to FIFA, to be passed on to the next champion 4 years later. In a strange way, the disappearance of the Jules Rimet Trophy reshaped how football would honor its history from that point forward. But for the original trophy itself, there was no happy ending. No dramatic recovery, no dog digging it up from a garden this time, just silence, suspicion, and a mystery that, to this day, has never been fully solved. Somewhere, possibly, fragments of that gold still exist, reshaped into jewelry, or coins, or objects that have no idea of the history they were once part of. Or perhaps it sits hidden away in someone's private collection, a stolen secret nobody has ever dared to reveal. Either way, the original World Cup, the trophy lifted by Pelé, by Bobby Moore, by the greatest legends the game has ever known, vanished from the world in December 1983. And it has never been seen again.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more.